Ukay then explained KPPU find that the structure of the cooking oil industry in Indonesia tends to be oligopoly, where the cooking oil market is controlled by few big manufacturers which have been integrated from mainstream to downstream.
KPPU menemukan bahwa struktur industri di minyak goreng itu cenderung oligopoli. Pasar minyak goreng yang sangat besar, di mana minyak goreng merupakan kebutuhan pokok masyarakat Indonesia, itu pasarnya dikuasai oleh segelintir produsen minyak goreng. Ini menarik karena mereka bisa besar juga karena mereka sendiri di hulunya memiliki perkebunan kelapa sawit. Jadi dari hulu sampai hilir, dari perkebunan kelapa sawit hingga pabrik minyak gorengnya, perusahaan tersebut terintegrasi secara vertikal.
Ukay then explained the integrated cooking oil industry should limit the impact of the high price of CPO in global market. Jakarta, Rizka Ayu for IDX Channel. The Minister of Investment or the head of the Investment Coordinating Board or BKPM will show the development of environmentally friendly technologies that Indonesia has achieved to the world in the G20 presidency. One of them is by demonstrating the development of electric vehicles. Minister of Investment Bahlil Lahadalia said that in the event of G20, the government will show the development of environmentally friendly energy that Indonesia has achieved to the world. Bahlil said that it will open the eyes of the world regarding the electric vehicle ecosystem that is being built in the country from upstream to downstream, from mining smelters to battery industry. The government will also build an electric vehicle industry which will start the production next May. It is known, or as it is known, the Indonesian government seeks to become electric vehicle production hub in the region, aiming for an output of 600,000 electric cars and 2.5 million electric motorcycles by 2030. Indonesia also preparing an ambitious plan to become a key player in the global supply chain of lithium-ion battery in line with the EV industry. Axiata has agreed to buy a controlling interest in LinkNet. Its two largest shareholders, Asia Link Dewa and First Media, had signed a share purchase agreement to sell their shares in the company to Axiata Investments and its sister company XL Axiata. Malaysian multinational telecommunications conglomerate Axiata has agreed to buy a controlling interest in one of Indonesia's biggest cable TV operators and fixed broadband internet provider, LinkNet, for about $604 million, paving the way for expansion in the archipelago's untapped fixed broadband market. LinkNet's two largest shareholder, Asia Link Dewa and First Media, a subsidiary of Lipo Group, had signed a share purchase agreement to sell their combined 66.03% shares in the company to Axiata Investments and its sister company, XL Axiata. Asia Link and First Media would sell 1.82 billion shares in LinkNet at 4,800 rupiah apiece, or 10% above the fixed broadband operator closing price on the Jakarta Bursa on last Thursday, for a total of 8.72 trillion rupiah, or equivalent to $606 million. The acquisition was subject to several conditions set out in the agreement and regulations. According to the Financial Services Authority's rule, any party seizing control of an Indonesian public company must conduct a mandatory takeover offer to acquire the remaining voting shares of the company. The uneven recovery of the economic sector has made the Financial Services Authority, or OJK, extend its credit restructuring policy until 2023. The head of the OJK said this policy is necessary considering the bank's transition in strengthening their reserves and to reduce the decreasing of bank capital. The Financial Services Authority noted that in December 2021, there were 663.49 trillion rupiah in total loan that had been restructured by bank. This figure decreased compared to the position of restructured loans in November 2021, worth 693.63 trillion rupiah. The chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Financial Services Authority, Wimbo Santoso, explained the vulnerable situation of banks make the OJK extend the credit restructuring policy until 2023. Wimbo said that it hoped that this step would not cause a cliff effect, so that banks were asked to continue to strengthen its reserves. In addition to that, banks were also asked to form reserves so that the termination of credit restructuring in 2023 would not cause problems. OJK said the size of credit restructuring is due to uneven recovery economy in several sectors, so that if seen from the financial reports, there are banks deeply affected by the current pandemic.
Sehingga memang inilah yang sebenarnya yang disebut sebenarnya lukanya dalam. Ya bahkan kalau kita lihat individu ada yang memang sudah lempar handuk. Nah sehingga kita minta perbankan untuk membuat cadangan yang cukup. Dan tidak mungkin perbankan membuat cadangan cepat. Ya harus punya waktu. Nah sehingga tadi restructuringnya kita perpanjang. Karena kalau kita normalkan secara cepat, balance sheet perbankan nggak bisa ngabsen. Bisa modalnya tergerus, bisa masuk pengawasan intensif.
OJK noted that until December 2021, the restructuring program had covered 3.11 million MSME debtors, whose nominal amount reached 256.73 trillion rupiah. While 0.93 million non-MSMEs debtors carried out credit restructuring of 406.76 trillion rupiah. Jakarta, Harjo Padmo, IDX Channel. Market headlines will be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
Saya Prisa Samodatu membawakan program berita News Screen yang menghadirkan informasi seputar ekonomi maupun juga bisnis dari dalam negeri.
Sebenarnya Pasar Now itu apa sih? Boleh dong dijelasin?
Lebih singkatnya tuh Pasar Now e-grocery channel ya. Jadi kita adalah supply chain.
Perbincangan bersama sosok wanita yang menginspirasi.
Langsung antara petani dengan marketnya atau pasarnya.
Diulas secara santai dan mendalam.
Yang mana sih, B2B atau B2C?
Kalau untuk yang B2C, uniknya ibu-ibu karena
Women's Talk.
Gitu,
setiap Jumat pukul 12.30 waktu Indonesia bagian Barat, hanya di IDX Channel. Perbincangan hangat tentang isu dan kebijakan ekonomi terkini yang diulas secara mendalam bersama narasumber terpercaya. Senin sampai Jumat, pukul 10 waktu Indonesia bagian Barat, hanya di IDX Channel.
Saya Mangivera Tjong dan rekan saya Wicky Adrian hadir dalam Power Breakfast.
Awali hari Anda dengan informasi dunia ekonomi yang diulas dari berbagai sudut pandang.
Indeks harga saham gabungan konsisten.
Simak pula analisa pasar modal dan inspirasi bisnis dari berbagai perusahaan rintisan.
Tapi inovasi ini digantarkan.
Power Breakfast, Senin sampai Jumat, pukul 8.00, hanya di IDX Channel. Welcome back. Indonesia has imposed a rule starting Thursday for a mandatory portion of palm oil to be sold domestically at a maximum price of 9,300 rupiah per kilogram for crude palm oil and 10,300 rupiah per kilogram for olein. The requirement comes as the world's top producer and exporter of palm oil tries to curtail a rise in domestic cooking oil prices that have climbed about 40% from a year earlier, in line with high global CPO prices. A so-called domestic market obligation will be applied to all cooking oil producers, which must sell 20% of their planned exports to the domestic market. Trade Minister M. Lutfi said that this policy, Indonesia hoped that the cooking oil prices will be more stable and affordable for the people while remaining profitable for sellers, distributors and producers. Lutfi said the national cooking oil demand is estimated at 5.7 million kiloliters in 2022, and the government was considering setting a similar requirement on other palm oil related products besides CPO, Olain, used cooking oil, and oil residues. To have a deeper view on our dialogue topic today, the urgency of imposing DMO for CPO in Indonesia, we have Mr. Bima Yudhistira, Director of Celios. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, Mas. Thanks for having me.
Nice to have you, even though we can only meet virtually so far.
Yes.
Okay,
No
so
problem.
talking about the plan that Indonesia is planning to impose a mandatory portion of palm oil to be sold domestically at a...
Yes.
Okay,
No
so
problem.
talking about the plan that Indonesia is planning to impose a mandatory portion of palm oil to be sold domestically at a maximum price of 9,300 rupiah per kilogram for CPO and 10,300 rupiah per kilogram for Olain. Do you think that this step is necessary?
I think the government already tried several options before. As we see, there's one price subsidized of the cooking oil, but it didn't work because the stock, because of the supply, is not reallocated, is not well allocated, and many of the sellers in traditional market even don't have this kind of a policy of a one price cooking oil policy. So they try all of the option, and I think this option is necessary for DMO in a CPO, and also setting the price, setting the allocation, because the problem of the CPO high price and the cooking oil price is there is no regulation such as DMO before in the palm oil. So perhaps 100% of the producer of the CPO is exporting. As we've seen that the CPO price is going up 64% year on years. And if this will continue, subsidizing in the retails is not going to be an answer. So they need to curb the supply. So not all supply goes to export market. So they need to serve some of the allocation of the supply for the domestic, especially for the producer of cooking oil. I think this is a necessary, even though there is still some doubt, is that 20% of the DMO is enough. Maybe we can cope with a 25% or 30%, especially during or before the Ramadan, because during the Ramadan, the demand of the cooking oil is increasing, and also the price of the cooking oil is tend to increase. So we have 3 to 4 months next to evaluate again this kind of the DMO, about the portion of the DMO. Is it needed to increase, or the price is fair enough for the farmers, for the small plant holders, for instance, and for the big company also.
Yeah,
But this is a necessary step.
Yeah, I guess this is the time for us to prioritize our domestic needs, especially when it comes to cooking oil. And don't forget, we also have this biofuel program that need a lot of CPO as the raw material. So this is necessary. So do you think it will work effectively?
I think as far as I'm concerned, this is the best option we have. If we're asking what is the other options, I think we don't have much time for experimenting or implement kind of various options. So this, in the meantime, the DMO is one of the best solutions. Okay. However, there is another issue, for instance. There is another issue about the difference price of the cooking oil, because they have a cheap price, or we call it minyak jelantah, and also they have a premium price for the cooking oil. Is the DMO will answering all of the cooking oil price difference yet? So this is also still hard to answer right now. So we need to gather more data and look and evaluate perhaps every 2 weeks or every 1 month about the DMO, because DMO is kind of a new experience for the Indonesian palm oil industry as well.
Okay, if we implement the domestic market obligations regulation, it means that we will have like 20% of the CPO that used to be exported now will be allocated for the domestic needs. And it means that we will have amount of taxation sources as government way to get the income. So how significant this regulation to the efforts of government to have the national income from the CPO taxation?
Yeah, this is a very difficult question to answer because there is a trade-off. The government can lose the export, like 100% full export of the CPO because the price is already good and will be contribute to the taxation revenue in Indonesia. But in one time, when there is no DMO and 100% CPO goes abroad, it will be impacting Indonesia domestic market also. The price of the cooking oil is also applicable for the food and beverage industry, cosmetics industry, pharmaceutical industry, and the other mainstreaming industries in Indonesia. This creates inflation. And if the inflation is increased, let's say above 4 to 5% this year annually, will be damaging also the tax revenue. So there is a trade-off. You can lose up the tax revenue from the exports, but in the meantime, you need to take care about the domestic tax revenue also because of the slowing recovery of the Indonesian economy.
Yeah, okay, I still have a few questions that I'm going to ask to you later on after the break, and stay tuned on Market Lines because we'll be right back after the break.
IDX First Session Closing Market, Senin sampai Jumat pukul 11.30 hanya di IDX Channel.
Saya Prisa Samodatu membawakan program berita News Screen yang menghadirkan informasi seputar ekonomi maupun juga bisnis dari dalam negeri.
Investor, kalian udah punya rumah belum? Berikut ini adalah tips bagi kalian yang ingin memiliki rumah impian. Tips yang pertama adalah menabung auto debit untuk membayar DP rumah. Kesulitan utama dalam membeli rumah adalah membayar uang muka sebagai syarat KPR. Jadi saat pertama kali kalian menerima gaji, langsung disisihkan secara otomatis ya untuk ditabung. Tips yang kedua adalah menabung dalam bentuk tabungan deposito ataupun emas. Menabung dalam bentuk tabungan deposito dan juga emas membuat tabungan kalian menjadi lebih aman dan tentunya melatih kalian agar semakin disiplin dalam menabung. Tips yang ketiga adalah cari DP rumah yang bisa dicicil. Program cicilan DP rumah membantu kalian yang memiliki dana terbatas. Tips berikutnya adalah pilihlah rumah yang sesuai dengan kebutuhan kalian. Pilihlah rumah yang memang kalian butuhkan ya sobat investor. Tips yang terakhir adalah pilihlah KPR dengan tenor yang cukup panjang. Karena KPR dengan tenor yang panjang membuat cicilan bulanan kalian menjadi lebih rendah. Nah, kini memiliki properti impian tentunya bukan angan-angan lagi ya sobat investor.
And welcome back to Market Alliance, and we still have Bima Yudhistira, Director of Sales. Bima, as you mentioned before, we can see in detail about the goal of government in implementing DMO for CPO. One thing that I'm going to ask to you is about how much actually this domestic market obligation regulation can limit the volatility of cooking oil price in Indonesia. Do you see the strong connection between the two?
Yeah, I think it's still one thing is debatable because as we can see, there is still many external factors going on. Apart from the DMO, for instance, the price gap between Java urban area and then rural area, as we can see right now, between the Jakarta and Gorontalo, the huge gap of the price of the cooking oil. I think there's another factor called distribution and also logistic. This is one thing that need to be solved apart from the DMO. But for DMO itself, I think it's like a good policy to start with. We need necessarily have a good start for the DMO, and we think that the DMO can help at least price stability in terms of the downstream up to upstream in the cooking oil industries. At least after the 2022, we can still have a price stability if the DMO will continue up to 2023, 2024. I think this is not only applicable for 1 year, but we can add some extra years until there is a price volatility in the international market is going to be down.
Okay, so in terms of volume, we have domestic market obligation, and in terms of price, we have domestic price obligation. So volume-wise and price-wise, are these regulation, it's fair enough for the producers?
I think that's a good question, yeah, because if we see this is a fair, of course, some of the CPO producer, which is 100% export, they begin to worry about this kind of regulation. And some of the producer in the CPO, they don't have industry in the downstreaming. They only produce a plantation and then going to the export directly without being processed in the downstream industry in Indonesia. So there will be a problem for them. But for the integrated palm oil industry or cooking oil industry, meanwhile they have a plantation also and they're ready to absorb 20% of the DMO in their own factories for producing cooking oil, I think there is no big deal for them. So it depends on the type of the company or type of the industry. But for the farmer itself, because last year's the price is already increased before the DMO, they already get many profit. I think it's fair for them right now. Even though there is a DMO still, they get many profit.
So far we don't see any complaint on this, but we're going to see it later on. So talking about the thing that had been highlighted by Indonesian people or us as journalists related to the high price of cooking oil in Indonesia, KPP or the Business Competition Supervisory Commission suspects there's a cartel practice by some companies in cooking oil industry. How do you see these allegations, and how do you see the efforts of government to monitor or to control these cartel practices?
So it's begin with the indication, yeah, when there is a huge increase in the CPO price, there is a gap, not immediate effect, but there is a gap between the increase of the CPO and then the producer of the cooking oil industry, which is 4 to 5 biggest players in Indonesia, is acquiring more than 46% of total market shares. That's why the antitrust policy, antitrust regulators said that this could be a cartel, because the moving of the price in the cooking oil is not directly affected by the increase of the CPO price globally. And the second one is because of the CPO price may be volatile, but the cooking oil price still high. So there is a huge gap difference, and they want to know why is that. Because if we find out the cartel is when there is a huge market shares owned by several companies, so we call it oligopoly market, but also there is an indicator that there is a communication to set a price together. So this is difficult to prove. Is it very difficult to prove? Is there a communication between 4 to 5 biggest cooking oil company to set up price together? So there will be court answered, yeah. There will be like a solve or discussion further, showing the data, showing the proof in the court. That was a very good recommendation. Next step to prove, is there a cartel or is just like a general market mechanism to set up a price because they want to gain more profit, for instance, or there is a proof in the court that there is also a cartel in the cooking oil business that need to be punished.
Yes,
for example.
We have to see the development on the case. And do we have an ideal mechanism to curb the cartel practices in food commodities in Indonesia, since we're having the classic problem, like not every year, but we face this problem like a lot, not just 1 or 2 times?
Yeah, the first one, we need to break up the big companies. So bigger the companies tend to be dominated the market. So 4 to 5 cooking oil company need to be break up into small and not affiliated company. So we need more players, of course, in the cooking oil industries. And the second one is, if the government want to subsidize the cooking oil, please do not subsidize the private sectors or do not subsidize the cooking oil company. Like what happened last time, one price of the cooking oil policy is failure because the government not subsidize direct consumers. They subsidize the cooking oil industries, and then they begin to distribute the one price cooking oil, which is not helping and tend to be like a moral hazard. So that's why we need to curb the cartel practices with the new and strong regulatory oversight.
Yeah, very interesting. Too bad our time is very limited. Bima, thank you very much for your time and your comprehensive view on our topic today. See you very soon, and good luck to you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And the news close our market lines today. And please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, Your Trustworthy Economic, Business and Capital Market Channel. I'm Wicky Adrian. Have a nice evening.
Melalui Bursa Efek Indonesia adalah lompatan besar menuju transformasi pertumbuhan perusahaan. Bergabunglah dengan ratusan perusahaan yang telah berkembang pesat dengan Go Public. Go Public, lebih baik.
Sobat investor, berikut ini adalah beberapa tips yang bisa kalian coba untuk mencapai financial freedom. Yang pertama, pahami kondisi finansial. Kalian harus paham berapa jumlah pendapatan dan berapa jumlah pengeluaran. Yang kedua adalah tentukan tujuan keuangan agar kedepannya kalian lebih mudah untuk menyusun strategi untuk mencapai tujuan keuangan tersebut. Ketiga, carilah sumber pendapatan yang lain. Biarlah pendapatan dari aset itu bisa menutupi pengeluaran utama atau pengeluaran pokok kalian. Yang keempat adalah investasi. Kalau Anda menyimpan uang di bank, nilainya akan terus tergerus. Tetapi kalau berinvestasi, nilainya akan terus bertambah. Yang kelima dan yang terakhir adalah lunasi segala hutang. Bila Anda memiliki tagihan ataupun hutang, segeralah melakukan pelunasan kapanpun Anda memiliki uang yang cukup. Itulah beberapa tips untuk mencapai financial freedom. Bagaimana dengan Anda, sobat investor?